Hi everyone. Today I'm really pleased to invite John. We're going to have a chat to John today. John's an experienced offshore fisherman. He's a coxswain grade 1, and John has enormous passion for fishing. He's happy on any waterway with a fishing line in hand. And John has also spent the last 5 years educating our fishing community out on the water and on land. John, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you, Ness.
John, we frequently hear from our fishing community about fishing offshore along the coast of Victoria. What is this big attraction for fishing offshore?
We've seen a recovery in the southern bluefin tuna in stocks. We've also seen the emergence of a sword fishery in Victoria, and there's a lot of people who go out deep dropping, chasing makos. Victoria was always seen a bit as a poor relation for game fishing, where it's now really has come to the front, and there's a lot of really good options out there for people to do. And with vessels getting better and more reliable engines, a lot of people heading offshore.
John, you mentioned that there's a lot of people that are new to fishing now. What would you recommend these inexperienced fishing people or those getting out on the water with their new boat, what would you recommend that they do before they head out on their own?
People who are new to offshore fishing, it's certainly, even compared to fishing in the bays, it's a lot different. Weather conditions, sea conditions can be a lot different. If you're going to an area you don't know, it wouldn't be a bad idea for someone who's new to fishing to actually try a charter or get a guide. Or if they've got, they know somebody who is a very experienced offshore fisherman, they could actually go out on their boat for a day and get an idea of how things work. The other thing too is things like joining fishing clubs, where there'll be other boats going and they can go to an area where there's other people fishing that they know, so that's just for that safety factor.
That's really great advice, John. When experienced people go out like yourself, what do you actually do before you head out on the water?
I always plan my trip around the weather. A lot of people, because we're time poor these days, they'll actually book a trip and then the weather sort of happens. First thing I do is I bring up, go onto the BOM website and I'll have a look at the interactive weather map. While I'm looking at them, I can get an indication of what the wind speed, wind direction is going to be like. I then go on to Medeye and I can have a look at sea conditions, weather directions for localised areas. Another app I use is the Boating Vic app. From that, I can actually have a look at different ramps. So if I'm going to a new area, I can have a look at ramps that are available before I get there, what the condition of the ramp. It also gives me tides. There's weather forecast which is generated through the BOM. It gives me actual and forecast, so I can see what wind conditions have been, and I can see what's going to come. So it's a really cool app to give you some ideas and help with your planning. That's basically gives me a good idea of when I go. Other than that, I then always make sure before I go, I've checked my safety equipment, I've been over my vessel to make sure that everything's how I want it to be. So I'm not going to have any nasty surprises when I'm out there. I always let somebody know where I go. It's really important to have somebody who's reliable, who's on the coast, and they can, if something does happen or you don't return when you expect, then they can actually let the authorities know. The other thing too you can do if you're going offshore or to a location, if you go on the AMSA website, you can actually go on and put in details of a trip you may be doing. Some of the Coast Guards, they have on weekends you can log in when you're actually leaving and log out when you come on. During the week on some of those, it does vary from area to area where that's actually available. But as I'm heading offshore, I always do a radio check with Marine Radio Victoria just to make sure that my radio is working satisfactorily.
Thanks, John. Great. John, if you're more than 2 nautical miles offshore, you must carry additional safety equipment such as a VHF marine radio, rockets, compass, and an EPIRB. When you go out, do you actually carry any other additional equipment on your boat?
Yeah, the equipment I carry, I always have a sea anchor. So if you did break down and you're in heavy sea conditions, you could actually you can put the sea anchor onto your bow. It'll do two things: slow your drift down, and it'll hold your bow into the prevailing sea conditions, which is a lot safer. I always wear, and I encourage any of my crew to wear a PLB, which is an addition to your EPIRB. The reason I wear that is if something happened and I couldn't get to my EPIRB, I've got a backup. And the other thing too, if I went overboard or one of the crew goes overboard, then I've actually can trigger off the PLB and then hopefully get rescued. A lot of guys will be out fishing on their own. They'll be, say, trolling. If you went overboard when you're trolling, even if you've got a kill switch that kills the motor, the likelihood that you'll be able to swim back to the boat and get back to the boat is quite small. So having a PLB on you just gives you a really good safety.
You mentioned the VHF marine radio. So if you're going more than 20 nautical miles offshore, what should boaters carry for additional communication?
But a lot of guys are heading, especially the guys are heading for the swordfish out from Lakes Entrance and Malakuta and those sort of areas, they're heading 50 plus nautical miles offshore. So they might need to consider other alternatives like a HF radio, gives you a lot more range, or sat phone. When you're outside that range, you will be able to get vessel-to-vessel conversations, but you won't be able to distress call back shore. So they're things you really need to maybe allocate a little bit more expense, but well worth it.
That's great advice. Expense does not matter when it will save their lives. That's terrific. Now, I know you basically would like to fish 365 days a year. The waters in Victoria get really quite cold in winter. So if you're in a remote location, it's during winter, you fall into the water, it's going to be pretty cold. Hypothermia could set in. Is there anything else during winter with the cold water in order to help us be more safe out there?
It's something I've been considering a lot lately. We all don't think that we're going to end up in the water or the boat's going to end up upside down. If it did happen, would you actually survive until actually a search and rescue could get to you? Something I am considering about putting on my boat at the moment is a life raft. They're around 50 kilos, so it's not a lot of weight. And if something did happen, it would at least get you out of the water and hopefully give you time to get rescued and survive.
Yeah. When you're out in the water and a heavy wind starts to roll in, what's the best thing to do when this unexpected gale force wind could come through?
If you do end up in conditions that you weren't expecting, first thing you need to do is put on your life jackets. If you've got things like self-draining decks, make sure your scuppers and that are clear so that water coming onto the boat can clear. So if you've got bilge pumps, you might need to turn your bilge pumps on. When driving back, just make sure that you're driving to the condition. So you might need to go a bit slower. If you're going into a head-on sea, you might just need to go a little, not directly into it. The same if you're running down a sea, just vary how you're driving. If you're feeling like you're in trouble, then radioing through to Marine Radio Victoria, and you could let them know your position, and they can then monitor you as you're coming in.
When you're anchored, what navigation lights do you need to have on?
The all-round white light, you hear a lot of people call them an anchor light, and I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. Yes, you just do display them at anchor, but they're not an anchor light. So your all-round white light is a white light that's done with a 360 degrees, and it needs to be in a position where it can be seen around the whole of the boat. You see some of them which are set low on transoms, and they're actually blocked by cabins and stuff like that. So they're not actually giving an arc or horizon of 360 degrees. You do display your all-round white lights, you don't display your side lights. When you're underway, and underway even includes drifting, so you should have your all-round white light on and your side light, which is your port and starboard light.
So, John, you've been out there, you've caught your fish, this is fantastic, you're ready to take them home. Do you clean them on the boat or do you clean them when you're back on shore?
So with the fisheries regs, all fish need to be landed either whole or in carcass form, so you just need to be aware of that. You can gut them, so especially with things like tuna, you need to gut them and then pack them with ice to get their temp down. So you can gut them and gill them, but you need to be landing them either whole or in carcass form. You can't fillet them while you're on the water.
John, we really appreciate you coming along today to give us some great advice for all our boaters out there who are going to do some bit of offshore fishing. As always, we want them to have a great time, but we also want them to come home safely at the end of the day to their families. Thanks a lot, John.
Pleasure. Thanks, Nick.